Hello everyone and welcome to Claret and Booze. My name's Nick. This is my daily ramble. I hope you're all well. I hope you've all recovered from the traumatic experience at the weekend. Don't know whether you caught the Sunday night show that we did. I mean, obviously, look, it was started off pretty harrowing. It was always going to. We discussed that horrible game, but it did end on a really, really light note. We turned into a bit of a laugh and a joke, to be honest, and that's the way you got to deal with it with these things. I think if you can't laugh, you'll cry, wouldn't you? So I think that's the way you do need to deal with it. As always, before we get started, if you are new to the channel, please subscribe because it does really help us. You know, it's free to do. You know, if you haven't got, I know a lot of people watch us, haven't got accounts. It's free to sign up to YouTube. Just subscribe, click that bell notification button, and you'll be notified whenever we come online. Also, don't forget, drop a like on the video for us because that also helps us. Right. Well, what we're going to talk about today is a fair bit. There's a fair bit, to be honest. We know that we've got the Olympiacos game on Thursday, but there's been a little bit of fallout from the game at the weekend, as you can imagine. And there's some interesting information that everyone can get. It's on the More Than Just a podcast. You know, Sean Whetstone, as we know, does speak to the main man, and look, he don't always get it right, but generally when he quotes Sullivan, you know, it's from the horse's mouth. You know, he's not going to lie. So I suppose, look, what we can do is we can jump straight into that. We can jump straight into that. Now, what Sean said was that the message coming from the club was very, very clear, and that is that no decision has been made on David Moyes, none whatsoever. They haven't forgotten the fact that we were in a relegation battle last year, right up until, look, 35 out of 38 games we were in a relegation battle. They haven't forgotten that at all. And that was a worry when you consider the amount of money that we've spent, or that David Moyes has spent, that he's been backed with. There was also talk of that as well, to say that they're also concerned with the way that David Moyes has spent money. Because, look, although people bang on about, you know, a 6th place finish, a 7th place finish, semi-final, and we've won the Conference Cup, that's come at some cost to the club as well. We've spent 466 million in 3.5 years in the time that David Moyes has been at the club. That's the 10th highest spend in world football in that period. The 10th highest. It's more than Aston Villa. Put it that way. It actually is. I checked earlier on Transfer Market. If you put in the date ranges, it's all there. If people are concerned about net spend, then what are we? We're 12th. 12th in the world on net spend. So I think, so in total spend, I think we were kind of 6th or 7th highest. I think we were 6th highest in the Premier League, and that's on spend alone. So we are no longer looking at, I think I've said it before, but we're no longer asking David Moyes to overachieve. The board are no longer asking David Moyes to overachieve. They're expecting him to achieve. You know, we're spending top 10 money. We're expecting top 10. And they basically said that nothing is guaranteed. They've also said, which is the most interesting part, that Tim Steidten has impressed since he's been in. Tim Steidten's going nowhere. It was confirmed, and it is confirmed, that those two are not seeing eye to eye. They're not. Over the summer, they were not agreeing on transfers. David Moyes was putting a kibosh in on Tim's transfers and vice versa. So I'm assuming when you've got David Moyes going, I want Harry Maguire, I want Scott McTominay for this much money, Tim's going, no, I can get this player for this amount. So they weren't getting on. And it was clarified again that the rumour that Tim Steidten was considering walking is true. Apparently it was true. So they had to make some changes. They had to kind of rescue the situation. So I'm assuming what they've done is they've had to kind of rein. I think maybe what happened there was that was when maybe Sullivan put that committee together. Maybe that's what he did. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is Tim Steidten is here to stay. And the biggest box that Moyes has to tick in order for him to even be considered is that he is going to have to learn to work with and for Tim Steidten. If he can't do that, then there's no party. Moyes moves on. But that's not. He could move on anyway. You know, he could do. I think he probably will. I mean, if Moyes is the type of character that we all think he is, if he's true to his word, what he said in that podcast that he did, then he won't tolerate working for a director of football under the normal circumstances that you see in European football. He's not going to do that. That's not a format that he agrees with. He wants full control. He is the great David Moyes. So I do think that this is going to be David Moyes' last season. As much as people probably don't want to accept it, it will be. I think it will be. We're going to move on. Whether or not he wins another trophy, they're still going to expect him to sign up to a new contract that will see Tim Steidten as his boss, effectively, which is how it would have to be. Tim Steidten is a sporting director, which is a director of football. All right, so personally for me, I'm more relaxed about that now. Now I've heard that news. That is encouraging. I suppose we've just got to ride this season out now and enjoy it and hope for the best. Hope that we can kind of start putting in some better performances in the league. Hope that we can go quite a long way in the cup and look forward to the following year, because I think it's quite clear that Tim Steidten is building a squad. We've all said this before anyway. The likes of Kudus and players like that. Tim Steidten is building a squad for the future. Now, whenever you hear comments from players and new players that have come in, they don't mention anything about David Moyes. Alvarez has come out in the press just recently, and there's loads of quotes flying about directly from Alvarez. And he starts off very well. He says, Tim Steidten basically phoned me up and said, I want you to be the first man for my project. And he said, yes, Tim, if you want me, I'm there. And he wanted to come to the Premier League. But then he went on later on to say that, I did know that Bayern Munich were interested in me in the summer, and I'm open. I'm open to anything. But as it stands at the moment, I'm happy at West Ham. So he was flashing his knickers, and this is the thing, And look, these guys that are joining us, they're top players. The only way they're going to stay and play and want to play for West Ham is if you've got European football, and they're going to want to play for a good manager that plays the right style. They are. I know a lot of fans are going to go, if he don't want to play for us, get rid of him. Well, these are different. We're moving into a different realm. This is where David Moyes is struggling, because we're not going out getting grateful players, lesser grateful players that are just like the opportunity, and I suppose a little bit like your Flynn Downs type characters that will come in and they're just grateful for the opportunity. They're not going to ask for a move because they probably can't do any better. Well, these players are different. They can, and we know that David Moyes doesn't create the nicest environment. That's why there's been a constant conveyor belt, a revolving door of players in and out, and there always will be. And that's why he's always going to be building. That's why Unai Emery has completely transformed Aston Villa in the time that he's been there, utilising the majority of their existing players. He's literally taken that group and made the best of what he had. The group that Steven Gerrard was struggling with. He hasn't come in and gone, Anderson, Haller, fuck, I don't want them. We'll get rid of them for nothing. Because that's part of a manager's job as well. When you take on a role, you take on the assets of that role and you try and grow them. Moyes didn't do that. He just wanted to basically completely Moyes the team up. And now we have almost a completely David Moyes team. Almost every single player, barring a handful, they're David Moyes purchased players. So this is his team. And then he's going and harping on about, after in the post-match interview, saying, Emery, if you look at what they've done in the last 6 months, it's brilliant. They're ahead of us. We're still building. Oh, you're still building. 466 million. How much more money do you need, Dave? How much more time do you need? Emery's done that in a year. Do you know what I mean? And Emery's talking about Champions League. If you listen to him in his press conferences, all David Moyes does is he tries to bring expectation down. And as we all know, David Moyes has got a ceiling. He's hit that ceiling so many times in the last 18 months, he must be concussed because he can't smash through it. He never will. The tactic that David Moyes has designed back when he was at Everton and probably before that was a tactic that is designed to get success against lesser teams. Well, at that time, there was only 4 good teams in the league. That's all there was. And this is from Obsidian Curse said this. There was only 4 good teams in the league, and that's why he managed to float between sort of 4th and 8th place, because it works against lesser teams. That's why we've done so well in Europe. But that isn't the case now. It's not. There's umpteen brilliant teams in the Premier League now. So to do this, what David Moyes is doing, you can spend as much money as you want, but you're going to be existing in mid-table long term. That's all you're going to be doing. You're not going to be punching any higher than that. So David Moyes, as I've said for a long time, he has hit his ceiling. I think the board know that. Tim Steidten certainly knows that. You know, it was absolutely shocking. Canning Town Len said in the podcast as well, the more than just a podcast. He said that the games that have just gone, 5 games, 2 elite teams, 1 crap team, and 2 teams that we're not on their level, really, Newcastle and Aston Villa, but we bloody well should be, because our spending in that period is on par with them, and when David Moyes came in, they was lower than us. So in that time, they've moved above us on sort of levels above on less money. So they should be comparative, but the telling thing is that David Moyes set out with the same tactics and the same team against all different teams, all from any end of the spectrum. It doesn't matter. One size fits all. And you know what? It'll work against Everton and everyone will go, oh, Moyes masterclass. Well, no. It's not. He just plays the same way over and over again, and sometimes it's going to work. It'll work against the lesser teams, which, as I've said, which is why we've been so successful in the lower European competitions, because you're playing teams that are worse than you. Considerably worse. And it's a tactic that will work against those teams. It's not easy on the eye. We don't want to watch it, but it works. Yeah, so very, very, very confusing. And sort of to add sort of insult to injury, everyone was talking about Antonio. John's done a video on Antonio. And listen, I do agree as well. A lot of people are sort of getting the wrong end of the stick with John's video. John isn't arguing to say that Antonio is great and he should be playing and he should be what we're basing our team around. He's not saying that. He acknowledges that Antonio shouldn't be our striker now. You know, he should just be an impact player. But he said we're blaming the wrong people. You know, Antonio has been flogged into the ground by David Moyes. So much so that against Newcastle, he hadn't trained all week. Right? He hadn't trained all week. He was ill. He still played the game against Newcastle. You could see he wasn't right. This game here, he hadn't travelled to... well, I didn't know this. He hadn't travelled to Jamaica. He had an injury. He wasn't scheduled to be playing against Villa. That's why Moyes came out in the press conference and said Kudus is almost ready, because Kudus was scheduled to be playing, but Moyes ordered a last-minute fitness test for Antonio. And the results came back, and it was enough for Moyes to say, yeah, you're fine, you can go out and play. He's carrying an injury. So Moyes is flogging this player, a player that has to play in a position which requires you to be physically tip-top, because you're fighting people. You've got to be quick on your feet. And he's playing him injured. He's playing him carrying an injury. Right, he is. This is how desperate that David Moyes is to get his players in that team and to prevent other players from starting. What sense does that fucking make? Kudus is fit and firing. Why would you not just play him? Mabama, you've got another one. Why not give him a go? If you want to use Antonio, let him sit on the bench, bring him on as an impact player. But the guy's carrying an injury and you've got options. What does that tell the squad? Honestly, it is so frustrating. So frustrating. But look, it's going to be a running theme. We know he's going to go nowhere this year unless the wheels completely fly off between now and Christmas and he goes on a 4 or 5 game bloody losing streak, which ain't going to happen. We'll beat Olympiacos. We'll beat Everton. I think that's what's going to happen. And I hope we do, because we don't want to drop down the fucking table again. What's the point? I think he's going to go at the end of the season anyway. It makes no difference. You know, I can suffer it. We've suffered it for this long. We did get a trophy out of it as well, which was nice. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we can get through this year. It'll be decent. You know, it'll be decent. Tim will continue to lay the foundations of life after Moyes in the January transfer window. He'll go out and he'll reinforce. I'm sure he will. I think he will. You know, I can see a striker coming in. We know the positions that need strengthening. I mean, how you could spend 466 million and still be reliant on a 34-year-old converted winger as your only striker, Thomas Souček and Vladimir Coufal, to have those 3 kind of weaknesses in the team, even though we shouldn't be relying on Souček, we've got enough midfielders to cover that area. We don't need to buy anyone in to replace Souček. We've got enough there. How long for, I don't know, because the likes of Fornals, a far superior player, he ain't going to be there for long, is he? He's not. Why is he going to sit there and play second fiddle to him? You know, to the confused giraffe that runs around the pitch aimlessly. Covers a lot of grass though. Covers a lot of grass. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, we go to Olympiacos. Very, very intense place to travel to. Apparently, at the moment, they're in all sorts of trouble. They're looking at getting points docked for their behaviour. Apparently, a fan got hit with a firecracker, and you know they're very aggressive. So I think the fans that are travelling out there, they're being chaperoned to the stadium and from it. So it's going to be an intense game. It is. They're top of their league, but we'll beat them. We'll beat them. We will. You know. We will. We've got no issues in Europe against these teams because they're top of their league. But look, it's an inferior league, as you know, it is. So I do think we'll beat them. Even if we don't, it's not the end of the world. You know, we'll probably still go through top of this group. But this probably could be the biggest test, not based on the team that we're playing, but based on the environment. So it will be interesting. I'm probably most interested to see what team that he picks because we know that a lot of players, it doesn't matter. He'll play them on Thursday and then on Sunday. But there's a lot of players that he won't. So it'll be very telling to see whether or not he plays Antonio on Thursday. Because if he does, then I doubt Antonio will play on Sunday. Or whether he'll do what I would prefer that he did, and that's play Mabama. I'd like to see him play Divin Mabama. I think it's time. It's time that he did. You know, that would be a massive tick in the box for Moyes. It's something that he hasn't got to his name at all. In 3.5 years, he hasn't brought one youth player through of his own. You know, that would be a big tick in the box. If he brought Mabama through, you know, showed some patience, give him some confidence, and actually developed it and created his own player, then that would be something that would go down well with a lot of the fans. I don't see it happening. If anyone's going to play, it's going to be Danny Ings. It will be. It probably will be Danny Ings, you know, because it's going to be the senior players that aren't playing in the Premier League. That's what's going to happen. Yeah, he's a fool to himself, I think, Moyes. I think he is a complete fool to himself. He's not going to win this battle. I don't think Tim Steidten is a very clever and a very aggressive character. And he's definitely got his feet under the table with Sullivan now. They like what they see. He's going nowhere. So David Moyes has lost this battle in terms of it's him or me. He's either got to work with him or Moyes has got to go. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But let me know what your thoughts are on that and let me know what your predictions are for the Olympiacos game. I'm going to go 2-0. I don't think we'll batter them, but I think we'll win comfortably. Yeah, 2-0. 2-0, I think. Anyway, look, that is it from me. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please drop a like on the video. Don't forget, as I said earlier on, don't forget to subscribe. All right? I'll speak to you all soon. Gabby you heads.